Hello and welcome. I'm Karen McNenny, author, mediator, co-parent specialist, and divorce consultant. And this is The Good Divorce Show, where we don't just talk about how to get divorced, but how to be divorced. Whether you're considering divorce, in the middle of it, or navigating life after, you're in the right place. And it takes courage to be here. This show exists to bring divorce out of the shadows of shame and into the light of education, and to challenge the idea that divorce must be destructive or adversarial. You're going to hear from professionals and real families sharing honest stories of resilience and repair, proof that divorce can be done differently. Divorce is not a weapon, it's a tool. And when used well, it can be a tool for transformation. Thanks for being here. Let's dive in. So delighted to welcome a pioneer onto the Good Divorce Show today. That is Dr. Debi Silber, founder and CEO of the Post Betrayal Transformation Institute. And she also founded the National Forgiveness Day, which is September 1st. Debi is also an award-winning speaker, two-time #1 international best-selling author. Her podcast, From Betrayal to Breakthrough, ranks in the top 1.5% globally. She and her groundbreaking PhD study revealed 3 discoveries that completely revolutionized our understanding of betrayal. And we're going to talk about all 3 of those discoveries today and how you can achieve full healing physically, mentally, and emotionally. She's also the creator of the world's #1 betrayal recovery certification program. And that crosses, recovery in life, in business, in health, applicable for leadership coaches, as well as divorce coaches, which is why I'm excited to chat with her today. She and her program equip practitioners throughout the world with her evidence-based framework so they can deliver exponentially better results with their existing clients. Debi has been featured on Fox, CBS, The Dr. Oz Show, and twice she has appeared on the TEDx stage, and now The Good Divorce Show. She equips practitioners as well as clients with the missing framework, helping them move from uncertainty to confidence, using general tools that keep clients stuck to specialized approaches that create genuine transformation. So happy to have you along for the ride today. Let's learn. Dr. Debi, you are not different than most people who join me on the show in that our personal work in our journey of life has informed what becomes our professional work. And this post-betrayal transformation, and you really are the pioneer. That's how I think of you. And I want to hear about the work itself, but I thought it might be interesting to first hear kind of the wellspring of your own personal journey that led to this work, if you'd be willing to share a little historical context.
Sure. Well, looking forward to this conversation. As far as my history goes, I'm in business 34 years. It was health and then mindset and then personal development. And then I had a really painful betrayal from my family. Thought I did all I could to heal from that. And then it happened a few years later. This time it was my husband. Anybody who's been through that, it's life altering, shattering. And I would usually go to books or courses or mentors to help me, heal, find my way out of something. And I couldn't find anything. So
Yeah.
here I was, 4 kids, 6 dogs, a business, like I had to get it together. So next thing I know, I enroll in a PhD program. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, how I was going to manage the time, but this was so big that I just needed to study it so big. And I just really wanted to understand how the mind works, why we do these things, and of course, how I could heal from it, just so I could be there for my kids, my clients. And then I remember going through the program saying, I have no idea how I'm going to heal from this, but if I do, I'm taking everybody with me. It was
Mm.
just this sort of knowing, and then it was time to do a study, so naturally I studied betrayal, and that study made 3 discoveries, which changes everything. I mean, it changed everything about my work, my family, my health, my life, and thankfully, many other people too, so
And before we get to the discoveries,
yeah.
how would you describe betrayal? There might be someone listening like, well, that was just a little, or, oh, I'm going to give him a mulligan, or like, oh, I don't want to blow it out of proportion. So, what in your work and your belief constitutes the experience of a betrayal?
The simplest way I define it is it's the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule. And
Mm,
every relationship has them. And the way it works is the more we trust, the more we depend on that person, the deeper the betrayal. So, for example, a child who's completely dependent on their parent and the parent does something awful, that's going to have a different impact than your coworker taking credit for your idea. Your best
sure.
friend sharing your secret. Still betrayals, different level of cleanup. But it's when we put our trust in someone and then we feel like they sort of took the mask off, it's a
Mhm.
shock to the body, to the mind, to the heart. And it's yeah, God.
Well, I also just wanted to maybe clarify, is it fair to say it's not just when someone does a thing, but it's sometimes what they don't do? I'm thinking about children and parents who maybe aren't protecting from, predatory behavior of other trusted adults or things like that. So it's not just what we're doing that may be the act of betrayal, but it might also be what we're not doing. Is
Oh,
that accurate?
absolutely. Oh, definitely, because, it's again, if it can even be a betrayal of your expectations. If you're a child and the belief was, "My parent's gonna keep me safe," and then they don't, that's a shattering of that belief right there. So
Yeah.
it's what someone does, it's what someone doesn't do. We could feel betrayed. A self-betrayal is huge. Betrayed by
Dig
our
into that a little bit deeper, that
yeah.
self-betrayal.
Yeah, like, think about it, if we know something or someone is not in our best interest and we keep going back to it.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay. I just got that goosebumpy feeling of like, "Oh gosh, Doctor Debbie's here to talk to me, but I know I'm not alone." There are other people listening, particularly in that rinse and repeat cycle of relationships where we might keep going back to the same thing and not recognizing that is our self-betrayal. And you've had an experience of kind of going back into a relationship and really learning how to overcome betrayal.
Mhm. Well, one of the classic signs of an unhealed betrayal is a repeat betrayal.
Uh-huh.
And, yeah, oh, the faces change, but it's the same thing. And there's it's never our fault. I just wanna be clear about that. This betrayal is a choice. It's not a mistake, it's a choice.
Hmm.
It's never our fault. It is our opportunity, though. There's a profound lesson waiting to be learned. The lesson is learn already that you are lovable, worthy, and deserving. Learn already that you need different boundaries in place. Whatever that particular lesson is for you, until and unless you get that, you're going to have opportunities in the form of people to teach you. So the idea is, you have this one experience, then you have another, and then when you finally say, "That's it, I'm never doing that again," and you make those changes, lesson learned. Like in my example, um, for me to take on a PhD, I was 50 years old. I hadn't been in school in 30 years, and
Uh,
to go to do something for myself just because I felt I needed to. And then it was such a big thing for me. And my lesson was put yourself on your own to-do list. It's not
mm.
about everybody else all the time. So that lesson was learned and it changed my life and the lives of many others, thankfully. But until and unless that lesson is learned, we will have opportunities to keep
Well,
learning it.
let's hear a little bit about that research that you did during
Mhm.
your PhD studies and the big aha discoveries that then have led to the work and the certification course and training that has grown out of that.
Yeah, thank you. So the first discovery was betrayal is in fact a different type of trauma that needs a different way to heal. And I love sharing that because there are so many people saying, "Why is it that I can experience death of a loved one, disease, natural disaster, and somehow this betrayal thing is really giving me a run for my money?" It's because it's a different type of trauma that needs a different way to heal. So if you've been working with well-meaning, well-intentioned coaches, practitioners, therapists saying, well, trauma's trauma. No, it's not. And it's different. Here's just a few reasons why it's different. Let's say you lose someone you love. You grieve, you're sad, you mourn the lost life will never be the same. But you don't necessarily go back and question that relationship.
Mm,
You don't question your ability to trust. You don't question your sanity. With betrayal, you do. There's a complete and total shattering of the self with betrayal,
Mm.
rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust, right?
Boy,
That
you're
doesn't
hitting all the big ones.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
and so there it's that is completely shattered and has to be rebuilt. Now that what makes betrayal different as well, this is so huge. Like, let's say you're betrayed, and then you'll go to, again, well-intentioned therapists, let's just say, and they say, "Well, you need to learn how to trust again." Now, I wrote a book, Trust Again, so I understand trust, and again, well-meaning. But that's like the last place where they say, "Oh, do a low stakes thing with someone like a friend,
Mm.
something just trust a little bit." That's the last place you need to look, and here's why. When we decide to trust someone, they say or do a certain amount of things over a certain amount of time, and we feel safe, we feel valued, we feel comfortable, we deem them trustworthy, right? So now that person betrays us. It's so terrifying because that was the person we were closest to.
Mhm.
That was the person who gave us a sense of safety and security who took it away, right? That was the person we run to when other people are causing the harm. That's the person causing the harm. What's even worse is now we look at it and we say, my whole system that I've created for discerning who's trustworthy is fundamentally flawed.
That's right, and that's gonna impact a life of relationships.
Exactly. So
When
do you
it's
see
yes, yes, the
why people say,
domino
oh,
effect.
learns on, try again with someone else. No, our whole system is broken, we think. So
Mm.
there are so many aspects of betrayal that just make it so completely and totally different. I mean, that was just the first discovery.
Right, right. So number 1, give it to our
Yeah.
listeners again.
Yeah, betrayal is a different type of trauma that needs a different way to heal. And when you
Mm.
completely heal it, you enter a place called post betrayal transformation. Originally I was studying betrayal and post traumatic growth. And for those who aren't familiar, that's sort of like the upside of trauma. How
Right.
whatever that trauma is leaves you with a new awareness, insight, perspective you didn't have. But yes, when it comes to, let's say, losing someone you love, the invitation is to rebuild your life without that person, right? But with betrayal, not only is the invitation to rebuild your life, you need to rebuild the self.
Yes.
So that's the invitation. So when you rebuild your life and yourself, now you've experienced a whole different space called post betrayal transformation,
That
PBT.
transformation. Okay, we're gonna dive into all these, but give us number 2 discovery. We're gonna lay our foundation of the research to start
Yeah.
with.
So the second discovery was that there's this collection of symptoms, physical, mental, and emotional, so common to betrayal. It's now known as post betrayal syndrome. We've tested over 100,000 people to see to what extent they're struggling. And what's so interesting, and I'm happy to share the stats, what's so interesting is we've all heard time heals all wounds. And I have the proof that when it comes to betrayal, that's not true.
Oh boy.
Oh,
Hold the
yeah.
fort, everybody, because we
Yeah.
talk a lot about, post-divorce, like, time is an elixir. It's an elixir of healing. Just over time, it will change, but you're saying,
I am
hold
saying it is healing from betrayal is intentional and deliberate, and if you do not intentionally and deliberately heal it, it will follow you around into your health, into your work, into your relationships. Happy to show you how that happens. But there was a question on the assessment that says, "Is there anything else you'd like to share?" People write things like, "My betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm never
Yeah,
trusted again."
yeah,
My
really
betrayal happened
hard.
18 years ago, feels like it happened yesterday. So we know we cannot count on time. We can't even count on a new relationship to heal it.
Mm,
Again, healing needs to be deliberate and intentional. And people don't realize this. They spend years, decades with symptoms. Again, happy to share some that are completely tied to the betrayal. Like I'll give you a really quick example here for a little story. There was a woman in our program in her mid 80s, and she had a 70 plus year digestive issue. 45% of everybody betrayed has a gut issue of some kind. Crohn's,
interesting.
IBS, diverticulitis, constipation, diarrhea, you name it. 70 plus years. She was adopted. They didn't tell her. It was like
Aha.
one of those. So for 70 plus years, you can imagine the supplements, the medications, the foods, the protocols, the everything. And she just got to a point where I have gut issues. That's who I am, right?
Yep, it's gonna live with it.
That just have to live with it. 2 weeks in our program, she healed from a 70+ year digestive issue.
Wow.
Well, that's what happens when you deal with the root cause, which is the betrayal.
Yeah. And when
Every
you carry it
single
around for that long, it literally affects your physical health, not just your mental
exactly.
health.
And I can
Mm.
even tell you with the 3rd discovery where all of that starts. Do you want me to share some stats from the
Pl
assessment just to
Please, please do. Yes.
okay, because it would have been an awkward moment if you said no. I'm kidding.
Are you kidding? I know want this to be a 3-hour interview, Dr. Debbie.
All right.
So we're
Well,
gonna just follow the breadcrumbs where they lead. We're gonna get to all
you
of it.
see how quickly I speak, so we're all good. As much as I'm gonna share the symptoms, I want you to hear these numbers too. Out of
Yeah.
100,000 plus people, men, women, just about every country is represented. 78% constantly revisit their experience.
Oof.
81% feel a loss of personal power. Without personal power, what kind of decisions are you making? Who
Mm.
are you tolerating? What are you accepting? You see?
Hmm.
80% are hypervigilant. That's exhausting. 94% deal with painful triggers. Some of the most common physical symptoms 71% have low energy, 68% have sleep issues, 47% have weight changes. In the beginning, you can't hold food down. Later on, you're emotionally eating, using food for comfort. Very common. Um, some of the most common mental symptoms 78% are overwhelmed, 62% can't concentrate. So let's just stop there. You can't concentrate. Let's say you have a gut issue, you're exhausted, you're still going to work, raising your kids, doing all the things, right? I'm going to get to the rest of those, but I just want to share one other thing that makes betrayal so different. I mean, there are so many, but here's another one that just came to mind. Let's say you lose someone you love, right? People rally, they're bringing you the
Yes.
casseroles,
Right.
they're giving
Yep.
you the time and the space. When you're betrayed, so often the person who's been betrayed is so ashamed and humiliated they're struggling and suffering in silence. What makes it even worse is very often they're covering for the betrayer. That person's so loved by the family, by the community. They don't want their reputation impacted. So now they're taking the heat for them.
Sure.
And because they're keeping it to themselves, life isn't stopping.
Yeah.
Do you see? They've had one of the most painful of the human experiences, and they're acting like everything is normal and going about their day as if nothing happened.
Yeah. And I think it's true, not only of betrayal, but just in divorce in general. Again, I
Mm,
would say if my husband had died, I would have had a whole meal train and support. People know how to show up, but these invisible deaths,
yeah,
these invisible traumas end up putting us in a cave of shame and isolation, which does
absolutely.
not help the healing.
No, not at
Yeah.
all. Yeah,
Staggering statistics.
yeah, so even just a few more. So,
Please do.
emotionally, 88% experience extreme sadness, 83% are very angry. You're bouncing back and forth between those 2 all day long. Just a few more. This one killed me. 84% have an inability to trust. So when
Yeah.
you think about that, what's that gonna do to future relationships, to your work, to
Mm.
anything, to yourself? 67% prevent themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. Big wall goes up, keeping out the bad ones, but the good ones too.
Right?
82% find it hard to move forward. 90% wanna move forward, but they don't know how.
Yeah.
What's so crazy is you didn't hear me say 20%, 30%. These numbers are super high. They're also not necessarily representative of a recent betrayal. This could be from the parent who did something awful when you were a kid. This could be
Yeah.
from the partner who broke your heart in high school. So think about it. They may not know, care, remember. They may not even be alive. And here you are decades later with these symptoms because it's left unhealed. The good news is you could heal from all of it. And that was the 3rd discovery.
Yes, dive in, discovery 3, and then we're gonna talk about the kind of the how
Mhm.
and also the resources that are available, but
Yeah.
unpack a little bit about this healing
Yeah.
from betrayal, the post-betrayal trauma.
Yeah. So this for me was the most exciting. And what we learned was while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and most people do, if like that woman I shared, the 84, mid 80s
Oh,
woman, if we're going to fully heal, and by fully heal, I mean symptoms of post betrayal syndrome, like I just shared, to this completely rebuilt place where you rebuild your life and yourself, we will move through 5 proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is we know what happens physically, mentally, emotionally at every stage, and we know what we need to do in order to move from one stage to the next. Healing's entirely predictable. We know the language of each stage, we know what it looks like, we know how to move someone forward. So that's all our certification is about. Happy to share the stages if you want to hear them.
yes, yes, I wanna hear about the 5 stages, and sometimes the common disbelief that we at stage 3, we're like, "We've arrived," but
Mhm.
unpack those so
Yeah,
that we can be thinking for ourself where we might be, but
yeah,
I'm guessing this is brand new thinking for most of us, and there's a lot of people walking around with this invisible trauma of
yes.
betrayal, and maybe even not giving it permission in our life to even identify it as a trauma.
I love that you're saying that because it's so true. Most people are told and taught, well, time will heal it. Just move on, find someone new, bury
Life is
yourself
hard, things
yeah,
happen, right?
things
Dismiss,
happen.
dismiss.
People are people, and so we're wondering why is it that I'm physically, mentally, emotionally forever changed and I just can't get it together. It's because we're listening to all that. So you will hear where you're at in the 5 stages. And like I said, healing is predictable. That's the
Let's
most
have them.
important. Okay. So stage 1. This is actually before it happens. And if you can imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual, what I saw with everybody, me too, was a heavy lean on the physical and the mental, thinking and doing. We're really good at that. And kind of neglecting or ignoring the emotional and the spiritual. Now, here's what's really interesting about stage 1. We turn down our intuition. Sometimes we do it unintentionally because the only way we can get everything done is by just doing, become almost machine like, right? But here's the other thing. Sometimes, and I don't want anybody to be upset with themselves if they've done this, we intentionally turn down the intuition.
Oh, yeah.
And we do that because if we confront what our intuition is telling us,
Mhm.
everything we've created is about to unravel.
Mm,
And we may not have the physical, the mental, the financial bandwidth to take that on.
yeah. Just keep that in the cave.
That's it. So we do that. It's sort of like when you have that thread, on the sweater, and you're like, if I pull this
Yep.
thread, the
The
whole
whole
thing's coming
thing's
down.
gonna unravel,
That's
and
it.
I'll be naked, right?
That's
The
it.
vulnerability of facing these painful truths. We know it's real. You are listening today because you wanna pull that thread and find a different way to be in this truth.
Yeah. So that's
Okay.
why so many people get so upset. How did I not see? How did I not know? Maybe you weren't ready to see. You weren't ready to know. Or I mean, people who deceive, they're really good at it. We,
Yes.
so we're not wired to be good at seeing these things because we don't think that way. We don't move that way. We don't act that way. Right. Anyway, stage 2, shock, trauma, D-Day, discovery day. This is the scariest of all of the stages. And it's the breakdown of the body, the mind, the worldview. Right here, you've ignited the stress response. You're headed for every single stress related
Mhm.
symptom, illness, condition, disease. The mind is like, what just happened? You don't understand. And your worldview is shattered. That's your mental model, the rules that govern us, that prevent chaos. You could trust this person. These are the rules. Life is like this. And
Yeah.
in one earth shattering moment or series of moments, everything you've been holding on to as real and true is no longer. The bottom has bottomed out on you, and a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. This is
Yeah.
terrifying.
Yeah.
But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You'd do anything you could to stay safe and stay alive. And that's stage 3. Survival
Mhm.
instincts emerge. This is the most practical out of all of the stages. If
Sure.
you can help me, get out of my way. How do I
That's
survive this? Who can I
right.
trust?
I gotta get on with getting on.
That's it. But here's the thing, and you can imagine stage 3 by far is the one, the most common place we get stuck. And
Mm.
here's why. Once we've figured out how to survive our experience, because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma we just came from, we think it's good. And then we get that confirmed by other people. Wow, you're doing a great job. Good for you. Right. And rightfully so. But what we've created is a functional life. We're able to go back to work, raise our kids, do the
Mhm.
things, but there's a flatness to it. It's
Yeah.
it's without learning to trust again. It's with keeping people at a distance. We're paying a big price for that functioning. We're surviving. We're by no means thriving. And so now because we're here longer than we should be, we start getting sympathy from people we tell our story to. We don't
Mhm.
have to do the hard work of learning to trust again. And on some level, it feels good. We don't know what else to expect or what else is available to us.
Yeah.
Transformation doesn't even begin until stage 4. So we take it. And now we're here, with this longer than we're used to. So now the mind starts doing things like, maybe you're not that great. Maybe you
Mm.
deserved it. Maybe this, maybe that. Y-
Oh, the evil
Oh,
twin that lives inside. Oh my gosh, and she can be
exactly.
such a bitch.
Yeah, and
Terrible.
yet right, and so you're listening and entertaining this, and then now because these are the thoughts you're thinking, well, this is the energy you're putting out.
Yeah.
Like energy attracts like energy. So now you get confirming evidence to support, "Yep, it's you." We get new relationships that confirm it. Here's also where we join,
Mm.
like, some lame support group, and now you have all your people. So now
Right?
you're like, "Uh-oh, I can't these are my people, so I'll sabotage my healing because I don't wanna outgrow my people." Here's where you go to again, well-meaning, well-intentioned therapist, but they're not skilled in betrayal. You're gonna feel heard and validated and understood, and that is in stage 3, it's crazy glue for stage
Mm.
3.
Mm.
In stage 2, it's so valuable, but in
Yeah.
stage 3, all you're getting is validation. You don't need validation, you need to move forward. Here's also
Mhm.
where people sabotage their healing because they're afraid to outgrow their betrayer, because they don't know there's anything else.
Sure. Okay, so we're on the
Yeah,
edge of our seats, Dr. Debbie.
all
Take
right,
us into
I'm gonna make it
4 and
worse,
5.
but I promise I'm gonna get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but you don't know where there's anywhere else to go, right here we start numbing, avoiding,
Yeah.
distract. Here's where we start
This
using
is the
food, shows.
food, the addictions, the workaholic, just anything to not have to look at the
E
thing.
exactly, and we do it
Yeah.
for a day, a week, a month, now it's a habit, a year, 20
Years.
years, 30 years. I could see someone 30 years later and say, "That
Yep.
emotional eating you're doing, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal?" They'd look at me like I'm crazy, they'd say it happened 30 years ago. All they did was put themselves in stage 3 and stayed
Yeah.
there. You
Yeah.
see? Anyway, if you are willingness is a big word right here, to let go of the story, all it gives you,
Mm.
grieve, mourn the loss, bunch of things you need to do. You move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. So here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo what happened, but I control what I do with it. So here's where you stop researching narcissism and all the things. And here's where you're like, what do I want? Who do I want to be? What am I
Sure.
ready for? It's very forward moving stage, very action oriented. And it's like if you've ever moved to a new house office, whatever, your stuff's not there, it's not cozy, but you're like, yeah, we can do this. But if you were to move, you don't take everything with you, right? You don't take those things that don't represent who you've become, who you're
Right.
becoming. And what I found was there's this one spot as people move from stage 3 to stage 4. If your friends weren't there for you, they're not coming. That support group, you're done. That therapist who doesn't know betrayal, you're done. The betrayer who's not changing, you're done. And people are like, is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing a transformation. You really are. Here's where the caterpillar is
The
becoming the
goo.
butterfly. That's it.
Right.
Right. To
We
become the butterfly, right? Anyway,
Yes.
when you've settled into this space, you've made it cozy, you've made it kind of mentally home, you move to stage 5, the most beautiful stage. And this is healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. Self-love, self-care, eating well. You couldn't do that earlier. Now you can. The mind is healing. You're making all kinds of new rules, new boundaries based on the road you just traveled. And you have a whole new worldview based on everything you see so clearly now. And that's what people ask me all the time. Do I start to date again? Do I go back to this person? Do I do that? I said, all you do is get yourself to stage 5 because When you're in stage 3, you only have access to stage 3 people and stage 3 thoughts.
Yes.
Same with stage 4, same with stage 5. So whatever decision you're making, make it from a place of strength and clarity versus scarcity and fear.
How does victim mentality, and
Mm,
I'm not saying we haven't been victims of terrible
mhm,
betrayals, but
mm.
as I heard you say, stage 3 people, stage 3 stories, you're gonna get stuck there.
Well, yeah.
And staying stuck in a victim story,
Mm.
is a place of stuckedness. And
Yeah,
again,
oh,
I'm
yeah.
not discounting the betrayals and the wrongs. I'm one of those people,
Yeah, yeah,
it happened, and
yeah,
it should not have happened.
yeah.
But how does the victim narrative
Mhm.
tie into this healing process?
Yeah. I love that you said that because that's what my newest book is called, Unstuck.
All
And yeah,
right, put
I
that
don't
back
know
up
how
in
you
front of the
figured that
screen
out,
here.
but, the feeling of a victim is such an comfortably uncomfortable sort of prize you get in stage 3. And we are justified. We are right. We were duped. We were blindsided. We were betrayed. Yes, you have a story and you have a very powerful one. Like, for example, look at me. I was betrayed by the very people I trusted the most.
Yeah.
And if I told you my story, you'd give me sympathy. But if people knew the story that was waiting for them in stages 4 and 5, they wouldn't hang on to the story they have in stage 3,
Mm,
but they don't know. And the example I can give is imagine 2 best friends and they're both 30 pounds overweight. They put themselves together, they look great. It doesn't stop them from doing anything. It doesn't stop them from living the life, right? But all of a sudden, one friend says, I'm so done with the 30 pounds. I'm just done with it. And
yeah,
she goes off on this healthy eating journey, loses the weight. Now she's wearing clothes she wants to wear versus what fits. She's has the energy, whatever it was that the 30 pounds meant for her. And she says to the other friend, come on, it's so good over here. Because she's seeing both. But the other friend's like, no, 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 I'm fine. And the truth is she is,
yeah,
but she doesn't know. She just doesn't
right.
know. So it's really the when we are the victim, we're getting something from it. And
Yes.
and when we think that's as good as it's gonna get, I'll take those benefits. That's all we get. I just wish everybody had a taste of what stage 5 felt like because they wouldn't waste another minute in stage 3.
Right, we get stuck. Well, when we come back from the break, we're going to hear about Unstuck, Dr. Debbie's upcoming book, as well as some practical things that maybe, I know you've got a quiz online. We're going to dive into some of the practical things that we can be doing. And then also, this might be a story of heal thyself and a little bit of Debbie's story as well. So stick with us. If this conversation is resonating, there are tools to help you put it into practice. Grab my book, The Good Divorce: How to End Your Marriage Without Ending Your Family. It offers clear guidance for navigating divorce with intention and care, especially when kids are involved. And for ongoing support and education, you can join me at the Good Divorce Academy, which is my online community and classroom. And if you'd like to work with me directly, you're going to find more information at thegooddivorcecoach.com. Thanks for staying with me today. I'm Karen McNenny, your Good Divorce Coach, here talking with Dr. Debi, who is our betrayal expert. In fact, she is really one of the pioneers of the Post Betrayal Transformation movement and has created an institute, the National Forgiveness Day. I want to hear a little bit more about that. And as we dive back in, this idea of your own journey and what you have learned by overcoming and moving through your betrayal transformation. What are you willing to share with me today and our listeners?
Betrayal is really it's so painful because these are the people we trusted the most. These are the people we'd run to. So it is so devastating and I'm such a family oriented person. So to have these betrayals from the people I trusted the most was just devastating. And then I'm a highly sensitive empath with integrity as my highest value. It's like, you don't betray someone like me. It just doesn't get worse. I feel it in every cell. So, but I also learned that rebuilding is always a choice. Whether you rebuild yourself and move along, and that's what I did with my family. It just simply wasn't an option to rebuild with them. Or if the situation lends itself, if you're willing, if you want to, you rebuild something from the ground up new with the person who hurt you. And
It's
that's what I
asking
did.
a lot.
It is, and that's what I did with my husband, as 2 completely transformed people. We both crashed and burned and both completely rebuilt ourselves. Not long ago, we, married each other again. New new rings, new vows, new dress, and our 4 kids as our bridal party. I think he transformed to the level that he did because he was the one who told our kids. And if anything is gonna have you fall from grace and realize what matters, it's losing everyone that matters. I can't even imagine the look of 4 teenagers looking at you like, "You did what to
Yeah.
mom?" And it was the most profound wake-up call for him. For me, I was the guinea pig to the study. If the study was saying it worked, I was doing it. If the study said it wasn't working, I was doing it. And my only intention when I learned about the 5 stages was to move through them because I was gonna live in stage 5, period, for myself, for my kids. That was it. A big, missed opportunity that I see with so many people. There were 3 groups in the study who did not heal. 1, they had their story, they were sticking with it. Deeply stuck in stage 3. Couldn't imagine anything other than the
Mhm.
story that they had. The second group, they were numbing, avoiding, distracting. So
Yeah.
they were, if it may have made the day a bit easier to get through, they didn't heal. The third group, this was the group where the betrayer had very little consequences. So whether
Oh,
it was out of financial fear, not wanting to break up a family, religious reasons, that was a big one. They did all they could to look the other way, turn the other cheek. I saw 2 things with that group. A further deterioration of the relationship, and 2, this group by far was the most physically sick.
oh, interesting.
Yeah, but people are so afraid of the crash and burn of the old. That's the only way you build the new, whether it's just a new you and your partner in a very different way. Either way, it's such a missed opportunity.
For those that are listening
Mhm,
and just maybe scratching the itch of curiosity. So,
mhm,
if we're understanding right, you were married, you
mhm.
and your spouse, upon betrayal, separated,
That was it. Deal breaker. Yep,
done,
done.
didn't legally get divorced
No.
at that time, but began to live separate lives.
Mhm, mhm.
And then through your research, your journey, um, you have come back to one another. How much time was between the "we're done" and, "Oh,
Yeah,
let's let's get married again.
yeah.
Let's do a ceremony."
It was very quick because of the intensity at which I was implementing these new things,
Yeah,
along with how quickly he lost everything he had. So it's not a normal time frame,
sure.
if I were to say, over a year or
Yeah,
so, but also you have to understand, here I was, it was the end of 20 it was the like, September of 2015. By 20 January of 2016, I was in the PhD program.
yeah.
The
So
discoveries were made in
you were
2018. This
doing research and we search, me search.
Yeah, and so that was so quick, but I think just well, within the first 2, 3 days, he would come back to the house just to pack up garbage bags of things that just he decided weren't him anymore, and just
Mm,
get rid of it, and then the kids would say, "Mom, he's getting so weird." Like, he's just handing out Wayne Dyer DVDs to everybody and sitting with people and having conversations, and it was, like, so not like him, but it was such a hard shift.
yeah,
Because it was for me too. I was like,
sure.
you'll always be the kid's dad, but no, I'm sorry. I can't have any of that in my life.
Yeah.
And and then it was interesting because part of the rebuild is who do I want to become? What was how was I settling? What do I need? And I guess the difference is if someone isn't a match for that, it's okay. It's okay.
Mm,
I wasn't gonna settle anymore.
right,
I
right.
wasn't gonna put my needs last. There were certain things I needed, and, if it wasn't even about, "Can you do this?" It was, "This is what I need now."
Yep. Your personal integrity. You said I'm a person of integrity.
Yeah.
And integrity, I sometimes think about like the integrity of a building or a
Mhm.
bridge. It's built in a way that it's trustworthy,
That's it.
right? And so you are rebuilding that trust within your to trust yourself of
Yeah.
what you were willing to receive in your life.
Exactly. And I've always lived a life where it's really simple. If you don't lie, if you don't deceive, you don't have to worry about what you said. I don't have the memory. Like I can't remember. So it's like, who this way, whatever I did, whatever I said, I don't have to think about it because it would be the same thing probably I would say and do again. And
Right.
it just makes it easier to live. And I live by a very simple rule. If it's gonna hurt someone, don't do it.
Yeah.
Period.
Do
And
no
I
harm.
just assume other people live by those same rules. So that's why it's so interesting that someone like me would be betrayed so profoundly. And I thought about it. I was like, either I'm the poster child for this or I'm meant to do something pretty powerful with it.
Sure. And most of our listeners who might be, coming to this conversation through the lens of divorce,
Mhm,
we don't expect that you are going to go through the same transformation that Debbie and her husband did, and that you might rekindle a relationship with your former spouse before, during, after, whatever stage you're in.
mhm,
But what I'm really hearing you say is that the recovery isn't it isn't necessarily about those external relationships. It is about the internal relationship and our capacity to to forgive. I want you to talk a little bit about forgiveness and why you established the National Day of Forgiveness and
mhm.
how that plays into our own personal recovery when we have experienced such extraordinary betrayal, which often comes inside the sandwich of divorce.
Oh, yeah. And I will say, probably half of our certified coaches and practitioners, they didn't rekindle anything with their old partners. They had outgrown that relationship, and they are in such beautiful new relationships now because when you're in stage 5, you attract a very different type of person that you didn't have access to when you're in stage 3. Like,
Yeah.
just a real quick story, then I'll get to the forgiveness piece. I was working with a woman and in her mid-60s, and she said she was just dating this one guy and over betraying her, which is definitely not the case. Women betray just as
Yes,
often.
that's right.
Uh,
Gender
and
specific, we're all capable of it.
Exactly, and in her case, it was her boyfriend betraying her over and over and over again, and she was so afraid she'd never meet someone else. She was in her 60s already, and anyway, we did the work because my work is just and my coach is, "Let's get you to stage 5, period, and then you make all your decisions there." She gets to stage 5, and I'll never forget, she says to me one day, he was a cone." I'm like, "What? What?" "Yeah, she goes, "Did you ever go to a parking lot and there's a cone in the parking space? If there's a cone, you can't park there." That's all he was. He was a cone, so no one else could come my way. The cone has been
Ah,
removed, and she found the most loving, beautiful soul for the whole next chapter of her life. But I remember
oh
she was like,
my
"It was just
gosh.
a cone." Anyway, to answer your question about forgiveness, seeing how many people have rebuilt themselves from the ground up, from something they never thought they could heal from being so duped, so blindsided, so we're never broken, bent. I
Mhm.
thought it needed its own national holiday. So September 1st is National Forgiveness Day. And it's really forgiveness for a few reasons for the person who's been betrayed, self forgiveness. And I'm saying that because if you thought for 1 second it had anything to do with you,
Mm,
forgive yourself for that. It doesn't have anything to do with you. But maybe you were so harsh and so critical on on you about yourself and just you need to forgive that. For the betrayer, you can forgive yourself once you've done everything humanly possible to right that wrong.
aha, yeah.
And then, So it just felt like with the nature of this type of trauma, it just needs its own holiday. So it has one.
And forgiveness, I recently heard someone talking about holding on to a thing is easy. Like
Mm,
as soon as we're born, babies, we have an automatic reaction to grip,
yeah.
and as parents, we hold. But to release, to open ourselves to a different possibility, that's the hard work.
Yeah. It's
And
terrifying because it takes a tremendous amount of courage to not not just easily trust again, to wisely trust again,
oh,
to
repeat that one. We need to hear that one again.
when you think about it, with trust, usually we choose two options. I'll just trust everyone again because I don't like the feeling of this, or I'm just not trusting anyone because it's too dangerous. And so you live a stage 3 life.
Yeah,
When you move into stage 4, you're learning how to wisely, cautiously, carefully trust with discernment. It's very different.
sure. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
No. No. Because imagine, let's say you love cooking and you burn yourself on the stove. That's like saying, "That's it, never cooking again." That's not fair to
Not
you.
sustainable. Yeah.
Right? So it's how do you learn to trust again carefully? And
Mhm,
it starts with that self-trust for sure.
mhm.
Mhm,
Tell me about the certification program that you have developed for professionals, because we have a lot of professionals who listen to the show who are
mhm,
always growing their knowledge, and we're here to really help divorce be a place of education. We can
mhm.
learn, and then what that means for people, not only the practitioners, but for those who are looking for support and want to move through this process.
When I saw how quickly someone can heal physically, mentally, and emotionally as they're moving through the 5 stages, I thought, as great as it was having me and some of my coaches in our programs within the PBT Institute, those 5 stages can be out there in so many more hands through our certification program.
Yeah.
So we certify it's quickly become the number one betrayal recovery certification for life, business, health, leadership coaches because these are coaches, practitioners, healers doing phenomenal work. But when you are doing that work at the wrong stage, it backfires every single time. Like, perfect example, the most wonderful coach gets someone to stage 3. They don't even know the stages. So let's say they unintentionally, but they're doing through their work, gets them to
Yep.
stage 3, which is looks like stabilization. So then
Yep.
the client says, I think I'm good. So the
I'm
coach
functional. Hmm.
Exactly. So the coach, not knowing what else to do, is like, "Okay, bye." You know, they both
Graduation.
that's it. They both don't have the benefit of the transformation because the coach didn't understand the language of stage 3. The client didn't understand where they were. So they're both ripping each other off because if that coach knew the language, knew the presentation, knew the type of trust that was shattered, knew what stage they were in, the symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome, they can help them so much more effectively. So whether someone's choosing to specialize in betrayal recovery or just have it as incredible tools in their tool belt, it just works so collaboratively. It just makes your great stuff work better.
Yeah, and you heard Debbie refer to the PBT Institute. That is the Post Betrayal Transformation Institute, really pioneering for all of us to see betrayal as the trauma that it is. Now, if I'm somebody who is suddenly awakening as I talk with you today, like I
Mhm,
got some unprocessed betrayal that is stuck.
mhm.
Tell us about your books. Tell us about how we can connect with these practitioners that you've trained.
Yeah. So my newest book, this is book number 9, Unstuck. This is actually for practitioners. And it's to give the language, give the stages, share the trust shatterings so that you can just understand what you're working with. Because this is something, it's usually your most resistant client. It's the one where it's like, why is it that my great stuff works for everybody else and not for that one client? It's the one that's canceling on you. It's like when you know what to look for, you're like, oh, yeah, it's betrayal. They don't even know it. The client doesn't even know it because they're assuming if it happened years ago, they're over it. So this one gives language to practitioners. And I have so many other books. Everything is at the PBT, is in Post Betrayal Transformation, thepbtinstitute.com. And we have our wait list. And the wait list is because we have so many people who are betrayed, who are looking for certified coaches and practitioners. So I'm just trying to meet the demand with the more coaches and practitioners we have. I can't wait to match everybody up.
Match everyone up, and we
Yeah.
will have all of those resources in our notes, in the show notes so that you can find your way to freedom, to health and wellness and living a stage 5 life. What would you say to our listeners, to me? I really feel like you've been talking to me today, um, who find themselves in a divorce journey that has been filtered through the lens of betrayal and how to move through that.
Yeah. I would say you've been through the worst of it already. Don't settle for a stage 3 life. Experience the confidence, the joy, the happiness, the health, the sense of personal power you feel in stage 5. You owe
Mm.
it to yourself. You can't go back. So you have a beautiful opportunity to create a version of you that wouldn't otherwise exist had the experience not happened. That's trauma well served.
My goodness, so much wisdom. We might have to get you back for a round 2. Have been chatting today with Dr. Debbie, founder and CEO of the Post Betrayal Transformation Institute and founder of the National Forgiveness Day. Boy, howdy, do we need that. Also, award winning speaker, 2-time #1 international best-selling author, and tune into her podcast as well, From Betrayal to Breakthrough. And I want to celebrate you for listening today and to thank you, Debbie, for bringing your knowledge and your wisdom to the Good Divorce Show.
Thank you so much.
And for all of you who have honored yourself with this time, I want to remind you everything will be okay in the end. And if it's not okay, it's not the end.